Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling this question. It's both age-old and cutting-edge. Can we train intuition?
Ooh,
We're going to really dive deep into gut feelings using this interview with neuroscientist Dr. Joel Pearson from the Rich Riddle YouTube channel.
okay.
It's our guide for this deep dive.
Awesome.
So by the end, you'll have some practical tools for understanding and maybe even honing your intuition.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We always talk about intuition as this mystical thing,
Yeah.
but Dr. Pearson's work is revealing the science behind those aha moments.
Right. And one of the most compelling pieces of evidence he presents is this technique. He calls it emotional inception.
Okay.
Basically, he flashes an image to one eye
Well,
while overwhelming the other with bright colors.
oh, wow.
It's like a Jedi mind trick. The
Okay.
person literally can't see the image.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Even though the image is unconscious, the brain still processes the emotional content.
Hmm.
So if you flash a picture of a spider to someone, the person might suddenly feel anxious, even though they never consciously saw it.
Okay, that's giving me chills.
Yeah.
So does this mean our unconscious mind is constantly picking up on things our conscious mind is missing?
Yeah.
And are those unconscious reactions driving our intuition?
It certainly seems that way. Our brains are incredible pattern recognition machines,
Yeah.
constantly absorbing information
Right.
and making lightning-fast connections, often below the level of our awareness.
Right.
And those connections can manifest as those gut feelings we call intuition.
But if our unconscious mind is so powerful, how do we know when to trust it? I mean, sometimes those gut feelings lead us astray.
Yeah.
Maybe I feel uneasy in a cafe, but the coffee turns out to be amazing.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
How do we separate those helpful, intuitive nudges from the misleading ones?
Yeah.
Dr. Pearson proposes this framework called SMILE to help us navigate this.
Okay, let's unpack SMILE.
Okay.
What does the S stand for?
The S stands for self-awareness. Okay, and this is crucial. Don't trust your gut when you're in a heightened emotional state, whether you're stressed, excited, or even head over heels in love.
Yeah.
Strong emotions can cloud your judgment and make those gut feelings less reliable.
So if I'm feeling super anxious about a job interview,
Yeah,
maybe I shouldn't trust my gut feeling to turn down the offer.
exactly.
Okay.
Give yourself time to calm down and process those emotions before making any major decisions.
Okay.
Intuition works best when you're at a calm baseline.
That makes sense. Okay, so S is for self-awareness. What about M?
M stands for mastery.
Okay.
Your intuition relies on learning
Mm-hmm.
and experience.
Uh-huh.
The more expertise you have in a particular area,
Right.
the more trustworthy your gut feelings will be.
So if I'm a seasoned investor,
Yeah.
I can probably trust my gut feeling about a stock, but if I'm a novice,
Right.
maybe I should do a bit more research.
Precisely.
Okay.
Intuition is built on a foundation of knowledge and practice. The more data your unconscious mind has to work with,
Okay.
the more accurate those gut feelings are likely to be.
Okay, this is starting to feel a bit more practical.
Yeah.
So we've got S for self-awareness and M for mastery. What's next?
The I in SMILE stands for impulse and addiction.
Okay.
This one is all about distinguishing those genuine intuitive nudges
Yeah.
from those pesky cravings and impulsive urges.
Oh, this is so relatable.
Right.
That feeling you need to buy something or check social media.
Yeah.
Is that my intuition or just my brain's reward system going haywire?
It can be tricky to tell the difference.
Yeah.
But it's important to be aware of those impulsive patterns
Right.
and not mistake them for genuine intuition.
Okay, so far we've got be self-aware, develop expertise, and don't confuse impulses with intuition. What about L?
L stands for low probability.
Okay.
And this one is all about how bad humans are at assessing risk.
Wait, are you saying we shouldn't always trust those gut feelings that tell us something bad is going to happen?
Yes.
Like that feeling of dread before a flight?
Yeah.
Even though flying is statistically much safer than driving.
Exactly.
Mm,
Our brains are wired to focus on vivid imagery and potential threats,
right.
which can lead to irrational fears and skewed perceptions of risk.
So sometimes logic and reason need to override those gut feelings. Especially when dealing with things like statistics and probabilities.
Precisely.
Okay.
Don't let fear and vivid mental imagery cloud your judgment.
All right.
Take a step back, look at the data,
Yeah.
and make decisions based on evidence, not just gut feelings.
Okay, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So we've covered self-awareness, mastery, impulse control, and low probability. What about the final letter, E?
E stands for environment.
Okay.
And this one highlights how intuition is context-specific. What worked for you in one situation might not translate to another.
So if my intuition is usually spot on in my work environment,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I should trust it blindly when making personal decisions?
Exactly. The environment where you learn something gets imprinted on that learning.
Okay.
So be mindful of how changing environments might influence your gut feelings.
This SMILE framework is super helpful.
Yeah.
But what about those people who don't experience mental imagery at all?
Yeah.
Those with aphantasia.
Right.
Does intuition work differently for them?
That's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to one of the most surprising aspects of Dr. Pearson's research.
So we've been exploring this idea that our intuition might be fueled by our unconscious minds picking up on cues and patterns.
Right.
But what happens when someone doesn't have the ability to visualize?
You're talking about aphantasia.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It affects about 4% of the population.
Yeah.
These individuals don't experience mental images in the same way that others do.
Exactly.
For them, the mind's eye is essentially dark.
And it makes you wonder, how does intuition work for them? Do they still have those gut feelings even without those vivid mental pictures?
That's the surprising thing. Research suggests that people with aphantasia still experience intuition. And they seem to perform just as well on tasks that require creativity and insight.
Hold on, so you're telling me that you don't need to be able to see things in your mind's eye to be intuitive or creative? That's kind of blowing my mind.
It challenges our assumptions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We often think of creativity as being linked to vivid mental imagery.
Right.
But aphantasia suggests that there's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah.
It's like the brain has multiple pathways for generating ideas and insights.
This is making me rethink my entire concept of intuition.
Yeah.
It's not just about those flashes of insight or seeing the solution in your mind.
Right.
It's something deeper and more complex than that.
Perhaps intuition is less about the specific sensory experience and more about accessing information that's outside of our conscious awareness.
Okay.
Whether that information comes through mental imagery,
Yeah.
bodily sensations, or some other mechanism, it seems that our unconscious minds play a vital role.
I remember Dr. Pearson also talking about the opposite of aphantasia, hyperphantasia, where people have extremely vivid mental imagery.
Yes.
In fact, their visualizations can be so intense that they sometimes mistake them for real memories.
It's a powerful example of how our mental imagery can be both a gift and a potential pitfall.
Right.
If we're not careful, those vivid mental pictures can lead us astray.
Yeah.
Especially if we confuse imagination with reality.
So how do we find that balance? How do we harness the power of our unconscious minds without getting lost in a sea of mental images or misinterpreting those gut feelings?
I think that's where the practice of self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
It's about being attuned to our inner landscape,
Right.
noticing those subtle shifts in our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations.
Yeah.
The more aware we become of those subtle cues,
Right.
the better equipped we are to distinguish between genuine intuition and those misleading impulses or vivid imaginings.
So it's like we're training our minds to become more sensitive to those whispers of intuition, those subtle signals that often get drowned out by the noise of our everyday lives.
Yes, and I think that's where the connection between intuition and creativity becomes really interesting.
Okay.
Both seem to operate in that liminal space beyond our conscious control,
Right.
where ideas and insights emerge seemingly out of thin air.
It's like when you're struggling with a creative problem and you just can't seem to crack it.
Right.
Then you step away, do something completely different, and boom, the solution pops into your head as if by magic.
That's the magic of the unconscious mind at work.
Hmm.
It continues to process information and make connections, even when we're not consciously focused on the problem.
Right.
And sometimes those breakthroughs happen when we least expect them, in those moments of quiet reflection,
Right.
or when we're engaged in activities that allow our minds to wander freely.
You know, it makes me think about the concept of flow state, that state of deep immersion and effortless action where time seems to disappear.
Yes,
It often feels like creativity and intuition are heightened during those flow states.
absolutely. Flow state is characterized by a sense of being fully present and absorbed in the task at hand. There's a balance between challenge and skill,
Okay.
and we lose track of time and self-consciousness.
Yeah.
It's a state where our conscious minds seem to get out of the way,
Right.
allowing our intuition and creativity to flow more freely.
Okay.
And interestingly, self-awareness, the S in SMILE, plays a role in achieving flow state.
So, to tap into our intuition and boost our creativity, we
Mhm.
need to cultivate that state of relaxed focus and heightened awareness,
Yeah.
where we're both present and yet detached from our thoughts and
It's
emotions.
a delicate dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
We need to be present enough
Hmm.
to notice those subtle, intuitive nudges,
Right.
but not so caught up in our thoughts and anxieties that we block the flow of creativity.
This is making me wonder if there are specific practices or techniques we can use to cultivate that state of heightened intuition and creativity.
Well, Dr. Pearson suggests a daily intuition practice where you simply pay attention to your gut feelings,
Hmm.
track your decisions,
Right.
and see if you can improve your intuitive hit rate over time.
It's like keeping an intuition journal where
Yeah.
you note those gut feelings, the decisions they lead to,
Yeah.
and whether they turn out to be accurate or not.
Exactly.
Okay.
By paying close attention to those intuitive nudges,
Hmm.
we can start to develop a better understanding of how our intuition works,
Right.
what triggers it, and when it's most likely to be reliable.
I love that idea of an intuition workout.
Right?
It's like we're strengthening that intuitive muscle,
Yeah.
making it more resilient and responsive.
Exactly.
But what about those more mystical experiences that Dr. Pearson briefly touched on?
Right.
Those moments of profound insight or synchronicity that seem to defy rational explanation. Does his research shed any light on those?
That's where things get really interesting. But we'll save that for part 3 of this deep dive.
So we've been on quite the journey exploring like the science and mystery of intuition.
Mm.
We talked about how our unconscious minds might be like the driving force behind those gut feelings,
Right.
and how the SMILE framework can help us decipher which hunches to trust.
Exactly.
And we even like delved into the world of aphantasia,
Right.
challenging our assumptions about the role of mental imagery in both intuition and creativity.
Yeah.
But you hinted that there's more to the story.
Mhm.
Something about this more mystical experiences that Dr. Pearson mentioned.
Yes. You remember how Dr. Pearson is interested in studying those, seemingly inexplicable phenomena
Right.
that often get labeled as woo-woo.
Right.
Things like premonitions,
Yeah.
synchronicities, or that feeling of knowing something
Right.
without knowing how you know it.
Right. Those moments that make you wonder if there's something more to our intuition than just unconscious processing.
Exactly. He's curious about whether there might be a scientific basis for these experiences,
Hmm.
even if they fall outside our current understanding of how the mind works.
But isn't it difficult to study these kinds of experiences scientifically?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you measure a premonition
Right.
or a sense of interconnectedness?
That's the challenge.
Right.
And it's one reason why these areas of research are often underfunded and overlooked.
Yeah.
It's hard to design experiments that can capture these subjective and elusive experiences in a way that meets the rigorous standards of scientific inquiry.
But it sounds like Dr. Pearson is up for the challenge.
He is.
He seems to be pushing the boundaries of traditional neuroscience,
Yeah.
exploring those like edges of human experience that science has often shied away from.
What's fascinating is that he acknowledges the limitations of current research models
Hmm.
while also advocating for a more open-minded approach.
Okay.
He believes that by combining rigorous scientific methods
Yeah.
with a willingness to explore these less understood aspects of consciousness,
Yeah, right.
we might uncover new insights into the full potential of the human mind.
It's almost as if he's suggesting that there might be more to intuition than just the brain's ability to process information and make predictions.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a deeper level of interconnectedness, a
Yeah.
kind of wisdom or intelligence that goes beyond our individual minds.
It's a tantalizing possibility, isn't it?
It is.
And one that has been pondered by philosophers,
Right.
mystics, and spiritual traditions for centuries.
Yeah.
Perhaps science is finally starting to catch up with those who have long claimed that there's more to reality than meets the eye.
I'm starting to think that the line between intuition and those more mystical experiences might be blurrier than we think.
Yeah.
Maybe they're all part of the same spectrum of human consciousness. And
Yeah.
it's different expressions of our ability to tap into information and insights
Yeah.
that lie beyond our ordinary awareness.
It's certainly a thought-provoking idea,
Yeah.
and it leaves us with a sense of wonder and possibility. What if we could develop our intuitive abilities to the point where we could access this deeper well of wisdom? What if those seemingly mystical experiences are simply glimpses into a level of awareness that's available to all of us?
Okay. I'm officially hooked.
Good.
So how do we cultivate this deeper level of intuition? Where do we even begin?
I think it starts with curiosity
Yeah.
and an open mind.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to question our assumptions about what's possible
Right.
and pay attention to those subtle whispers of intuition that often get drowned out by the noise of our everyday lives.
Mm.
Dr. Pearson encourages us to start with a daily intuition practice.
Right, that intuition journal we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
tracking those gut feelings,
Ooh.
noticing the patterns, and seeing how often they lead to accurate insights.
Exactly. It's becoming more attuned to our inner landscape,
Hmm.
noticing those subtle shifts in our thoughts,
Okay.
feelings, and bodily sensations that might signal an intuitive nudge. And as we practice, we might start to recognize those more subtle forms of intuition, those
Right.
whispers of knowing that go beyond simple predictions or gut reactions.
So we're not just training our minds to be better at making decisions, but
No.
also to become more receptive to those deeper levels of knowing,
Yeah.
those glimpses into the interconnectedness of all things.
It's like we're expanding our definition of intuition,
Yeah.
moving beyond the purely cognitive realm
Right.
and embracing the full spectrum of human experience.
Hmm.
And who knows, maybe those mystical experiences that seem so elusive might become more commonplace as we cultivate this deeper level of awareness.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
It's not just given me like practical tools for understanding and honing my intuition,
Yeah.
but it's also sparked a sense of wonder and curiosity about the untapped potential of the human mind.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? There's
Mhm.
always more to explore, more to discover about ourselves and the nature of reality.
Right.
The journey of understanding intuition is a lifelong adventure.
This deep dive into intuition has left me with more questions than answers.
Yeah.
But in the best possible way,
Yeah.
it's challenged my assumptions, sparked my curiosity, and given me a whole new perspective on those mysterious gut feelings that guide our lives.
I'm glad.
What about you? Have you had those moments of profound intuition, those synchronicities that make you wonder if there's something more at play? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep diving deep and trusting those whispers of wisdom within.